As a major Resident Evil fan, it's probably taken me longer than it should have to take a few steps to the side to visit another fan favorite franchise. That is correct, I am starting up the Devil May Cry series. I've never played any of these games, and I don't even think I've ever seen gameplay of this stuff, so this is Devil May Cry. Don't go away. So all I knew about Devil May Cry coming in, and this is a pretty interesting Easter egg. I feel like at this point the majority of people know it, but Resident Evil 4, in its pre-alpha stages, they're just getting thrown ideas around. You know, they're making the game, and then people are like, hey, this isn't really Resident Evil anymore. They're like, okay, well, we don't want to scrap it. Let's just turn it into another franchise called Devil May Cry. But I gotta say, this game has one of the most fun intros ever. Out of any game I've ever played. Not kidding with you. It's like usually you start the game up. I'm not even like start like the game. I'm just like loading the disc. It comes up and it's like the intro cutscene to the menu is sweet.
Let's rock, baby.
That was awesome.
Not only that, after you actually start the game, the intro cutscene to the actual campaign, what you'll be doing, is just as cool. Yo! You get introduced to this badass chick named Trish. You also get introduced to the badass main character Dante. And from there on out, it's just a pretty, you know, not complex story, but a pretty cool story.
What the fuck?
Sword. Time to go to work, guys.
Awesome.
And to make another comparison to Resident Evil, because I mean this is from Capcom, you see they're definitely taking inspirations here right from the start. There's classic camera angles here, more Code Veronica style because they pan a little bit. You have great ambience, like the whole mansion setup is totally Resident Evil style. But if you haven't played any Devil May Cry, and you probably have if you're watching this, but think of Resident Evil, but make the character like sprint around with a giant sword and dual hand and infinite ammo handguns, and replace the zombies with like demon monsters, you could call them. And it is hack and slash fun. You're exploring this mansion. The game is broken up into segmented missions, which is pretty cool. It's not really like a huge part of the game. It makes you feel like you're getting more progress than you actually are. But I will say it is kind of like cool to go back and play a game of that style, because broken up into mission style segmented areas these days, really not that common. It's more open world or live service or stuff like that. So kind of cool to go back to something old school. One of the coolest aspects to this game I found was the double jumping off walls. You can pretty much wall bounce or wall jump off everything here. The game gives you total free reign to do whatever you want. Even in areas it doesn't make sense, or you do whatever. And the cool part about this is that in a lot of areas, actually, where I was just like wall bouncing for fun or whatever, there's areas where you jump and you'll find treasures and stuff. And it's like, well, shit. There's literally no way to tell that something was there because it'll spawn out of nowhere. But it was pretty cool. Now, because this is a hack and slash style game where you're exploring this mansion and the outside areas around it, what are the weapons you got? Pretty important. Now, the game really goes for quality over quantity here. You don't get a lot. It isn't the longest game, so it's not like you need a whole bunch here, but you get a sword as a melee weapon, you get a lightning sword as another one, you get fire hands. I forget what its actual name was, but it reminds me of Fire Hands from Hexen. And then towards the very end, you get pretty much Blood Demon Sword. Fire Hands was my favorite because whenever I activated it, it just made my ranged weapon seem extra strong, like I was shooting like fire and shit. Because on the range side, you had the best, in my opinion, the dual-weld pistols, Dante's classic. You also had a grenade launcher, which actually is kinda OP if I had to point out anything OP here. OP towards just like the smaller enemies and stuff, it's like AoE is pretty big. You get the needle gun, which is used for specifically underwater areas only, and then towards the end of the game you get this alien gun. I don't know, it shoots like a laser beam that bounces and ricochets off walls, pretty okay. But I stuck with the pistols the majority of the way through. Devil Trigger here is instrumental. It is the thing that keeps this game fresh and keeps you engaged. Because it is a hack and slash, the majority of the time you'll just be spamming the same button. And yes, there's some combos to work with here, but it's pretty minimal stuff. You're mostly gonna be spamming buttons. But there is this thing called the Devil Trigger, and what it does is it builds up over time, and when you activate it, you trigger devil mode, I guess you could call it. And this is really well balanced for a 2001 game. You get super strength pretty much. Your attacks basically do double the damage. You're faster, stronger, but you can still take damage is the important part. You're not invincible, so it's not like you click it and then you spam it extra hard. It's you time it right. When the boss has an opening, you activate it, you get your few shots in, and because you activated the Devil Trigger, you've got extra damage in, but you still have to avoid attacks, so you can't just be like mindlessly activating it, spamming the button and jumping out. The first time I activated Devil Trigger, I automatically assumed I'm in super mode, I'm invincible, and I died to the boss because he just like absolutely spammed me. So Devil Trigger here is one of my favorite things in Devil May Cry. Boss fights are pretty hit or miss, or another term I would use is frustrating or well balanced. The Eagle Bird was my favorite thing to fight. I felt like well balanced, pretty good fight. The Nightmare was a nightmare. Legitimately died many times on it. Looked up guides until I realized one of the guides I looked up said, when he shoots his ice beam, jump on his back. And before I was just dodging it. And once you learn that, for anyone else struggling out there with Nightmare, once you learn you can jump on his back, which I should have learned, off spawn, but it's pretty much free shots at this point. And it's important to know that because you fight him 3 times. And I know I haven't really touched on story like really at all here. There's not much to say here. You got the hot chick Trish walking around doing whatever she's doing. She's working for the bad guy, but then she ends up switching sides in the end. Dante's fighting evil. Last thing to mention here is traversal. This was kind of not great. I have no problem walking around and bouncing off walls and stuff, very fun. But there are times when you need to be pretty precise with your movement, and there are times where seemingly for no reason your guy jumps and somehow misses. Like, I don't even understand how this happens some of the times. Particularly there's a purple lava area I struggled with. And even watching other people play online, I'm trying to figure out what technique or trick or tip I need to get past this area. Even they struggled, so some of the jumping, traversal, platforming in this game is a little off. Presentation side of things, I'll be honest, I love this game's presentation. It's great. The cutscenes are engaging.
20 years ago, Mundus, the Emperor of the Underworld, resurrected.
Why are the cutscenes so good? The menu isn't all chopped up and confusing and so many panels open like seemingly a lot of modern games. The menu is sweet. Hell, even selecting a weapon in the menu gives you a really cool in-game mini cutscene that more games modernly should have. The sound effects and enemy design was particularly diverse. I mean, no two enemies look the same, not even close actually. Between the puppet demons and these weird wraith ghosts with ginormous scissors coming at you, lizards with shields, I mean, it's just like the imagination for enemy design was off the charts. Voice acting isn't really at all bad for 2001, and the camera here, listen, in Resident Evil, there wasn't really a problem with cameras in old Resident Evil because the majority of the time there's not a lot on screen. Here, there was a couple problems with the camera because a lot of the time the bosses you're fighting are massive. So because it's fixed camera angles, it's hard to get some angles sometime on some enemies, and sometimes the enemy just completely blocks your screen until you die. So my overall arcing opinion and main thought in this game is it's a lot of fun hack and slash with some great droplets of Resident Evil. If you're a Resident Evil fan, you'll know what I'm talking about. When you get into the mansion, immediately you're like, yo, I could totally see this being a Resident Evil game. Exploring this whole place, you never ever know what's around the corner. You're picking up keys and puzzle items to slot in different areas until you eventually make it to the outside, all while fighting a hack and slash game against demons. There's a currency system I haven't talked about yet involving red orbs. Whether you're finding these by treasure areas or killing enemies, or you're getting rewarded for your rank at the end of a mission, you get red orbs. Well, you take these to the shop. You can purchase upgrades, aka unlock combos, on weapons, or save them for things in the shop like a vital star, which is just grants you, it's basically like a green herb, it grants you HP. Devil Star, which automatically refills your entire Devil Trigger to max. Blue Orbs extend the maximum HP you can have, quite vital in my opinion. Purple Orbs extend the maximum amount of Devil Trigger. Untouchable, which is the invincible mode but very expensive. Holy Water was sweet, you just drink that holy water. Every enemy, not bosses included, every enemy dies. And overall, the orb system with the currency and everything, great system. But that's basically every factor to this game I've talked about. It's got great ambience, satiating combat, badass characters, sweet cutscenes, and while it does get a little ticky-tacky with some boss design or some camera angles or some platforming elements, I have no problem with this game. I would replay this any night. 8.3 out of 10. So that's it. Trish flipped to the good side, and they walked off. And hopefully I see them in Devil May Cry 2. I'm legitimately actually interested in the story here for Devil May Cry 2 with what is Trish and Dante up to. I'm assuming that there's just going to be some demon thing going down and they'll have to go kill the demon. But either way, I'm excited for Devil May Cry 2. I don't even know how many Devil May Crys are there. I think 5, Maybe some spin-offs on the way. But for now, I think, what am I on to next? Dishonored? It's either Dishonored or Assassin's Creed coming up next. So for now, I'm your host, Cyberplay Entertainment. I hope you enjoy this review. Peace out. What is up? I know what you're thinking. You're only here for the bonus Easter egg soundtrack I put in at the end of every video. But did you also know I have a donation page under Buy Me a Coffee? Donate whatever you want to my channel and I'll put half of that back to an environmental charity. So that's that. Enjoy the music. Peace out.